Everyone, Jason Nunn, Fisherman's Warehouse, Tuckerwell, Marks Point. This Friday's fishing report, and what an absolute classic day. 27, nearly 28 degrees they say today, and just perfect conditions and blue sky. How long will it last? That's the best question we've got to ask. I think there's going to be some showers definitely into tomorrow and rain into Sunday, but we had a pretty good couple of days, I might add. Anzac Day was absolutely perfect. I was able to head out to the shelf, run out with Lucas Stansfeld and the crew. The water, 24.5 degrees out wide, and blue marlin. Unfortunately, we weren't one of the guys that did that. However, some of the other boys, some very big fish out there at the present moment. I heard of one of the guys, Central Coast, got busted off, but Steve Thomas and son Daniel, they were out on Inquasi. They lost a very, very big fish out the back of the Newcastle Canyon there. So there's some big fish around. Out on 1,000 fathom line, there's been yellowfin, and there were reports from yellowfin from Browns right up to the Southerns, and that was backed up. I know Aaron Bevan was down off the Southerns, and he was chasing all day, but I definitely know Steve and Daniel spotted some fish moving very fast, and that was what the reports were off Sydney. Fish 20, 25, maybe 30 kilo, but moving fast. But that's the first real sign of yellowfin this autumn, so it's great to see, and they're out in that 1,000 fathom line. But this run of blue marlin, I hope it's going to continue in the next few weeks. If you're ever going to catch a big blue marlin off Swansea, this is the time of year. And there was a lot of bait out there, a lot of bait fish, a lot of dolphins, just a lot of life in general. Back on the edge, there was stacks of bait, but just no fish. Some really big dolphin fish also out there. I know Ryan Faulkner and crew got a couple of really nice dolphin fish up around that 10 kilo or better, and they also got a marlin there on Tuesday. On the fad, plenty of dollies around, but not a lot of size. I think you've just got to manoeuvre around, and I've got a few guys started to head down towards Texas as we're now starting to mayor basically around the corner. There were a few kings down. There was a couple of bycatches, like John Dory, which was an unusual capture, but nonetheless, when you're fishing live baits down in that area, I know Cody Gearing and his crew down there, they got a very nice John Dory, 60 centimetres. So just goes to show you what's in that deep water. But inshore, we've seen a vast improvement the last few days. We're now starting to see some really good snapper on these inshore reefs. Fish 2.5 to 3 kilo. I think we're going to see these fish now stick around right the way through into late July and August, but they've started to turn up in good numbers. Some very big bonito. We talk about these 4 kilo bonito. I reckon some of the fish that I saw this week were probably bigger than that. So you're seeing bonito, snapper now coming on. Obviously full moon next Saturday night, and of course the tides working out perfect. Tomorrow a 10 o'clock low tide and about a 4:30 high tide. But look, trag have been around. We're still seeing flathead, but a real mixture of fish. Moe's, trevally, even nanny guy coming in from some of that deeper water, and a few longfin perch, and won't be long before they move in. So our offshore situation is really getting itself together. With this calm weather, we haven't seen a lot of mullet move around, and that big mullet haul around about Easter has definitely subsided, so we haven't seen lots of travelling fish, but a lot of birds up on that Belmont Blacksmith stretch. A lot of salmon now starting to move in on the beaches, and a lot of tailor. Also a lot of brim and a few flatties, but there's been some really nice mulloway, not only on the beaches, but definitely behind me here over in Lake Macquarie. Some big reports over this last week. There's been a lot of bait, Wangi, Coal Point, up into Belmont Bay, down to Rathmines, and even down the other end on the western side of Pulborough over towards Shingle Splitters. Massive bait schools around. A lot of tailor moving these bait schools, pushing them, moving them up to the surface. A lot of fish busting up and around about that 9:30, 10 interval. So you don't need to be out there on absolute daylight, but there's a real range of fish just legal up to 50, even sometimes 60 centimetres. We're seeing some really big fish mixed in with them, but underneath those bait schools, after those tailor are working them, we're seeing a lot of mulloway, and the guys that are catching the mulloway are making the comment. They're actually seeing 5 or 6 fish actually happen. I spoke to my good mate Steve Norris just yesterday. Same deal. He got a really nice fish around about 97 in amongst that bait schools, but we're still seeing some really nice flathead, and he was able to tag 4 flathead over 70 centimetres on that one morning. So we're still seeing some good flathead in the lake, but there'll be more moving in over the next month or two. When we had a lot of those fish that did move out, will come back in. There is the odd salmon in the lake, but not a lot. The tailor are very dominant at the moment, but There's a lot of kingfish, channel of course, but a lot of kingies in the lake. So if you're up for kingies, that's the go. And again, the squid are still there in reasonable numbers. So we hope that that tends to bat on. If you're a brim fisherman, well, I think it's perfect at the present moment. Great fish down here on the flats, particularly this shallow water down here behind me, but you've got to work to the high tides. And with this moon phase starting to then move around and these tides now starting to get late, next week after this little bit of rain we get is going to be perfect to fish the evening, particularly up around the islands in towards Marks Point, but definitely behind me here at the back of the co-op, some very, very big brim around. Guys, all in all, the fishing's fantastic. I just wish we could duplicate this for the next month. That would be perfect. We're going to go through a little bit of suffering, but guess what? We'll head out the other side. Fishing looks great. Next Saturday, I'm shelf bound. Those blue marlin are calling. I'll see you then.